and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. All right, today we're going to talk about something super essential to furniture refinishing. Now, it may not be the most exciting part, however, it is a really quintessential part of the whole process. So let's head on over to the piece of furniture I'm working on and talk about it. Sanding. That is what we're talking about in today's video. Like I said, not the most exciting part of the process, but definitely an essential one. It's essential to know how to sand the right way. Now that may sound silly to some, but there's definitely a right way and a wrong way. I'm going to feature my tools that I use today, which is this Festool. I will link everything down below. This is a dust extraction system. This is the CT MIDI by Festool. This is my ride or die. I use this every day and I absolutely love it. And I'm going to show you firsthand how it performs. All right, now let's zoom in on the sander. This is the Festool ETS EC 125. I know it has quite a name, but this I can't live without. This is a 5-inch orbital sander. It is an adjustable speed. It is phenomenal. My favorite tool probably in the whole barn next to my paint sprayer. So let's go on over to the piece of furniture. I'm going to show you what I've already done, and then we're going to sand together, and we're going to go through what mistakes not to make for the final finish that's going to be absolutely beautiful. Here's our piece. Now you might think, well, wait, you've already started the sanding process. How are we supposed to learn? Well, I've only done half. So I wanted to show you, this is what it should look like right before you get ready to go in with your stain. There is a process to sanding, and if you don't do it the right way, you won't get that finish that you want. And once you apply the stain, it may be too late, and then you'll have to start over. So I'm gonna save you and give you some tips. So we're gonna start by sanding this side. Obviously, this is the before, this is the after, which is ready for our sander I'm gonna be using in today's video, but I do wanna give you some other recommendations because the Festool is a higher price point sander. There are many other economical solutions to a sander where you don't have to spend a ton of money. I've used them personally myself in the beginning of my career, and I'm gonna show a couple of different ones as well as link them down below. So the next thing we need to talk about is sandpaper. And I have what I call a sanding formula. So it's going to vary depending on what you're working with. This is solid mahogany. However, if you are working with a wood veneer, you are going to want to shift up that formula of sandpaper just a little bit because you don't want to burn through. For those of you that don't know what wood veneer is, typically it is a very thin layer of wood that is glued down over an MDF or press board. Sometimes it's even glued down over solid wood, but the veneer being so thin and typically a rolled type of product can come in many different grains and looks. So it is essential for you to know what you're working with before you go in with your sandpaper, because if you go into aggressive, you may burn through and then it's a problem. I'm going to show you what my sandpaper formula is, and then we'll go over what the different brands are. But if you're working with solid wood, and this is essential, you want to make sure that you're starting with something that is going to cut through and get rid of all of that old stain. I start with 100, then I move on to 120, 150, and 180. So that is the order in which you will sand to achieve that flawless finish. Now let's go over these a little bit more in depth. This one right here is Pro Sand. I would say this is a middle of the road as far as budget goes. Great piece of sandpaper. Then we have Abranet. These are more like a mesh. This is our 120, and this is what you'll do right after you go in with your 100. Go down to 120, or I should say go up to 120. And then you go 150. Again, this is Pro Sand. I didn't have another sandpaper that I wanted to feature because I've kind of found my favorites. So 150, and then you're gonna end at 180. Now this is also very similar to the Abranet as far as it being more of a mesh, but this is 3M. This is very affordable and very available through Amazon and many other places. Again, I will link all these different papers below, But that's what you're gonna wanna do. You're gonna wanna start with 100, go to 120, 150, and then 180. Okay, so I wanna show you the final sanded piece, part of the piece first. Now the reason I did this is I wanted to show you how it's supposed to look right before stain goes on. I get asked that question a lot, or I've been sent pictures and says, do you think this is ready for stain? And the answer is no. If you see any finish left behind, then no. Took a break because I wanted to talk about something essential. In that part of that segment, you saw me lift my hand off of the sander several times. The reason I did that, I wanted to show you that I was not holding that sander super tight. I was not applying a ton of pressure to that sander, because if you do that, you can not only maybe put dips or divots in your piece because you're pushing so hard, you can also cause coil marks or swirl marks, which will show up once you stain it, and it's hard to see it on the bare wood. So key when you're sanding, light pressure. Let the sander do the work for you. What speed do I have my sander set at? I have it set at, can't really see it, it won't focus, but it's set at 6, which is the highest. This is an adjustable speed sander, so it can start at 1 and it goes up to 6. What I wanted to showcase is the dust collection system. It is doing its job. There is no dust. I have not done anything. I have not wiped this off. There is no dust on that top. Now, some of you say, wow, you paint first and then stain? Yes, I do. It's the way I do things. It's the way I've always done things. There's a couple reasons for that, and I'll go into that in just a minute. But again, very minimal dust, and I can blow this off if I do get any dust on my painted piece. Okay, I got down so I could be in the frame with the piece of furniture and talk through a couple of things. Now, you may or may not have seen in that last segment, because I did fast forward it, I showed you what not to do. So when you're sanding, another tip is you want to make sure that your sander is always flat and flush. You don't want any of this when you're sanding. You don't want to be moving that sander, because that's going to create divots in the top and not have it be super straight and smooth. So you always want to make sure you're flat and you're not rocking that sander side to side at all. Okay, so I also wanted to show you what it should look like after your first pass with your first grit. Is this ready to go? Absolutely not. Not even close. And this is what it should look like. You're not going to get off all of that existing finish on your first pass with your first round of sandpaper. That is why we move through the grits, not only to create that super smooth, flawless finish that's ready for stain, but every piece of sandpaper, every grit kind of has its function. So let's move on. We're gonna go 120 and you'll start to see this stuff disappear. All right, there we are. Final product. This is ready for stain. Now I'm going to give you another little tip. If you are concerned, thinking maybe I pressed too hard, maybe I do have some swirl or coily marks that I imparted onto the wood, how do I know before I go in with my stain? Because the worst thing you can do is go in with a stain and then they appear and then you got to wait for it to dry and sand all over again. So let me give you a quick little great tip. In order to test out your sanding skills, see how you did before you go in with a stain, wet your piece down. It's just water. It's not going to hurt anything. This is kind of a 2-for-1 tip. Let's say you love the color. So you know what? I don't want to stain it. I just want to clear coat this. Well, a clear coat is going to alter the color a little bit. What you see here is not necessarily what you're gonna get once you clear coat it. This will mimic that. Oh, see how orange that is? So if we were to go in and clear, look how that changes the tone. So that's one thing that the water can do. The second thing is showcase whether or not we had any swirl marks. So you wanna test that out? Let's see if I did. Move quick before this dries so you can see. This will allow you to see any of the swirl marks you may have put in there, anything that might not be even, something you might have missed. In this case, we got nothing. We would be able to see them. They're gonna show up once we mist that piece with the water. And the best part is, it's just water. So as you can see, it's already gonna dry. Won't harm it, won't hurt anything when it comes to your next step, which is your staining. This piece is ready for stain. We've concluded the sanding part of the video. If you want to stick around for a little bonus, I'm gonna stain this on camera. I haven't quite decided what I'm gonna use yet. Typically, my go-to is a real light stained top, but I don't know if I want that much contrast on this one. Plus, it's mahogany, which can tend to turn lighter stains pink unless you seal them. And yeah, don't feel like doing that today. So I think I wanna go for something richer to go with that black. So let's go see. So I just went and looked at my cabinet that I have all my stains in, and I think I'm gonna kind of do a concoction. I'll pop a picture up here of my inspiration. This was a piece that I recently did, and I used about 4 different products to achieve this look. So it wasn't just a single solid color stain. So I'm gonna go ahead and attempt to get that same look. I will list all the products down below that I use. So let's go get some stain on this piece. So we are gonna stain, but we're gonna start with a paint wash. What is a paint wash? It is paint diluted with water. In this case, it's a 50-50 ratio. I'm using Fusion's Tapestry, which is a beautiful tan, and it creates a beautiful wash before we go in with our stain. It's going to help me in this case. So that is one round of the paint wash, and there's a couple reasons why you would wanna use a paint wash. It's sheer like a stain, you like the color, or you're trying to cancel out some color in the wood species that you have. In this case, it's kind of twofold. I know I did this formula when I achieved another color, the one that I showed you, my inspiration photo. And 2, I did want to cancel out some of that red, and this will help that. So our paint wash has been dry for about an hour. It is safe to go in with our stain. So I'm going to go in with the first round of stain. This is Minwax Walnut, and see how it turns out. I may stop after this and not have to add any more products if I like. And here's the final product. I love the way it came out. I only had to use 2 products plus my top coat. Thank you so much for joining me today for this video. I hope it was helpful for you and you may have learned something new. Thank you so much for being subscribers as well. If you aren't subscribed, make sure you go hit that subscription button so you're notified when all of my latest videos are released, as well as being a part of the Born in a Barn community. Again, thank you for being here, and I'll catch you on the next video.